So this is the Espresso machine order form. You can see we've got two forms here, the shopping cart form and then the payment form. Very much like the tutorial that we worked on Thursday, not nearly as difficult, not nearly as many steps involved on our part because a lot of the functions have already been built for us. So let's get our Visual Studio open. Let's open up our CSIS 125A folder from the root. We're going to need to open up the two HTML files and the two JavaScript files that have the TXT in them, and then rename them and then save them. So we've got the CO cart TXT HTML file, the CO cart TXT JavaScript file, then the CO credit TXT HTML, and the CO credit TXT JavaScript. So we're going to put our name and date in all of those. Let's save them without the TXT portion. So saving this file, doing the save as technique, getting rid of the underscore TXT. So it should just end up being CO underscore credit.js. Then the HTML file, put in author and date, and then do the save as. Get rid of the underscore TXT and save it. So we got the two co-credit pages. Those are the second part of the review assignment. And we're going to start on the cart pages. So here's the cart JavaScript. We'll save that as, removing the underscore TXT. And then same thing for the HTML file. Name and date, save as, and get rid of the underscore TXT. So you should have 4 files ready to go. We got cocredit.js, cocredit.html, cocart.js, and cocart.html. So we look at the instructions, then the next thing is to go into the cocart HTML file and link to it the cocart.js file, loading it asynchronously. And then we'll take a quick look at the contents of the document just to see the form element and the IDs that are assigned in there. Okay, so in our cocart HTML, we just want to drag and drop the cocart. There it is up above. All right. Then going back to the instructions, within now the form tag for the cocredit HTML file, we need to add the get method when the cart form is submitted and point it to the to open up the cocredit, right? So as we go down here then in the HTML, we can take a look and see that we've got same situation as we did in the tutorial. You've got a form up here that we're not using. That's just simply for login purposes. And then further down under this section here, you can see there's the form and it's been ID'd as cart, and it also has the name of cart. And so right here then is the form that we need to insert the method of get and our action, which is just pointing to the cocredit.html file. So we'll go ahead and put that in right there. So the form ID cart, name cart, now should have a method attribute equal to get and an action attribute that points to the cocredit.html file. We'll save that. Back to our instructions. All right, so now in the JavaScript file, the cocart JavaScript file, Directly below the initial comment section, we're going to add an event listener for our window load event, and then it's going to do these items here. So let's just go ahead and start with the event listener for the load event. So this is going to be in co-cart, right under the comment here. There is the window object using the add event listener method, identifying the load event, and then starting a anonymous function. And what we'll do here is just go ahead and close that up so that we don't forget about it at the end. Okay, now in between, we're going to put in, first of all, a call to the calc-cart function, calc-cart, I should say. And that's got a comment with it too that reads, calculate the cost of the order. Okay, so there's the comment, calculate the cost of the order, and then just simply a call to the calc-cart function, which we have yet to build. Okay, the next thing they want us to do is to add an event handler, an on-change event handler, to the model quantity. So that's the selection list, you might recall, where the user selects how many of the product that they want to purchase. And that one has a comment with it as well, which reads event handlers for the web form, which is really not all that informative when I think about it. So right underneath the call to calc-cart, then we go ahead and put in the comment, event handlers for the web form, and then here you can see that we're targeting the model quantity inside of the form, and then assigning to its on-change event handler call to calc-cart. Okay, and then for C, it says we need to use a for loop that loops through every option in a group of shipping option buttons, adding an event handler then to run the calc-cart function for each of those option buttons. So really, if you think about it, we have to create that collection first, right? We have to get a variable created here that'll contain all of the shipping options, and then run the for loop on that variable, and then add the on-click event each time through the for loop. Okay, so here's the declaration initialization of our of our shipping options, and you can see that we're just using a document.query selector all, targeting all the inputs where the name is set to shipping. So that's going to be a collection then of all those options, and now we're going to go through each one of those options one by one, and then each time through the loop we just target the particular option and its on-click event handler and assign to it the calc-cart function. Okay, so we're up to step 5 now, where we actually create the calc-cart function, calculate the cost of the customer's order using the field values within the cart form. Within the calc-cart function, then we do steps 5A through F. So the first thing is just declare the calc-cart function. So we'll go outside of our anonymous event handler function there and the end of that event listener, and then create the new function, which is going to be calc-cart, and then curly braces for the statement blocks. Make sure you save your work as you go, Control S. So step 5A, then create a variable named order cost. And then order cost will equal the cost of the espresso machine stored in the model cost field multiplied by the quantity of the machines ordered as stored in the model quantity field. We'll also display the value of the order cost variable in the order cost field and format it as US currency. So we're actually, these functions have already been built for us here to do all that for us. The format US currency, and I think there's another one too for the locale. Which one is it? Let's see. Format number, that's right. So if you scroll down to the bottom of your JavaScript file there, you should see those two already built. Okay, so 5A, we're just going to create a new variable order cost assigned to it then essentially the M cost times the quantity. No, that's right. The first thing actually we need to do here is to establish all these values as variables, which they really didn't list. I didn't see in the instruction there. So this is what I was talking about. We have to declare these variables inside a calc cart first, and then we can go ahead and perform the math on them. So you can see we're getting M cost, which is going to be the value from that field. Q index is going to be the value from the quantities selected index method. Quantity itself is going to be the value that's assigned to the selected item. So we have to establish those first before we can actually do the math that they're asking for there in step 5A. So now we can go ahead and do step 5A, which has a comment first, initial cost equals model cost times quantity, but this is what 5A is asking us to do. So variable order cost now is going to be equal to M cost times quantity. Now, obviously, we couldn't do that if we hadn't established these up here. And then the cart form elements value, remember, we want to change the formatting on it. And so we're using that custom method that's already built for us and then passing to it the value of order cost. So that was 5A. Now 5B. Actually, when I look at this, they are doing them individually, aren't they? Yeah, just, we could do it that way, create the value and then do the multiplication, do the math on it, and then create our variable and then do the math. But it's just a little cleaner to put all the creation of the variables first and then do the math on each one. So in 5B now, we're creating ship costs, and that's going to be equal to the value of our selected shipping option from the group of shipping option buttons multiplied by the quantity of the machines ordered. And we're going to display the value of the ship cost variable in the shipping cost field and formatted with the thousandths operator to decimal places. So there we use that other custom function they built for us, the format number function. And so we are putting a comment with it as well that reads retrieve the cost of shipping. And I just realized I did not blow this up for you yet. Let me do that. All right. That's a little easier for you to see. All right, so here's what we got so far in the calc cart. We declared the three variables that we needed to be manipulating down here in the calc cart function. So we declared those three first, just basically grabbed them the values from the form, assign them to these variables. And now we're using each of those variables as we go through here to make these various calculations. So order cost, and then assigning that back to the value in the form that is ID'd as order cost, and then formatting it using that custom function, format US currency. And now in the ship cost, we're using the query selector all to get the checked item. So that would be the selected item as far as the shipping cost is concerned, grabbing its value, multiplying times quantity. So that gets assigned back to the shipping cost variable. And now we're assigning into the shipping cost value in the form now, the formatted version of that ship cost with 2 decimal places. So that was 5B. So we're up to 5C now. In the subtotal field, we want to display the sum of order cost and ship cost formatted with the thousandths separator and 2 decimal places as well. So that's a pretty simple one. Got a comment for it. that reads calculate the order subtotal. And now you can see that we're grabbing the value property of the subtotal element within the page, the one that's ID'd as that, and then using that format again, format number function to take that order cost value, add it to the ship cost value, and then return it back with 2 decimal places and a dollar sign. Or actually, that doesn't give us the dollar sign, does it? That just gives us the 2 decimal places. It's the currency that gives us the dollar sign. Yeah. Okay, so that was step D, right? No, step C. So we're down to D. So now we want to calculate the sales tax equal to 0.05 times the sum of the order cost and the ship cost variables. Then display the values of the sales tax variable in the sales tax field, formatted with the thousandths separator and 2 decimal places. So we'll add a comment here, calculate the sales tax. That right below where we're working. So this time it's the declaration of a new variable called sales tax, and that's the results of multiplying 0.05 times order cost plus ship cost, and then we'll take those results, run them through the format number function, and then assign it to the sales tax value within the form. So that was 5D. 5E now, in the cart total field, we're going to display the sum of the order cost, the ship cost, and the sales tax variables, and format those using the US currency function. So that has a comment as well, reads calculate the cost of the total order. And then we're just creating a new variable called cart total, and that'll be equal to then order cost plus ship cost plus sales tax. And then we'll take that result, the cart total here, format it as currency, and assign it back to the value of the ID'd element cart total. And then finally, 5F, we want to store the label text of the shipping option selected by the user from the shipping field in the hidden shipping field. So we talked a little bit about that, I believe, in the tutorial, where a lot of times as developers we'll put these hidden fields into the form, and then we can actually assign values to those so that they can be processed when we receive, when our, the program or the software, whatever we got is going to process our form, they'll still see that value. The user won't see that value, but the value itself will be provided so that we can use it in our calculations, manipulations, whatever we're doing in the form checking side or the form calculation side. So that has a comment that reads store the order details, and you can see that we're basically just identifying the node that was clicked in the shipping. Okay, so that finishes up step 5. Moving on now to step 6. So save the changes in our cart HTML file, verify it in the browser that everything calculates correctly. So let's do that. Let's go back to our Visual Studio here. Let's go ahead and run the CoCart HTML file in the browser. And see that we've got the quantity here, but we're not getting any totals yet, which at this part, actually, we should be able to see those. Why are we not seeing those? Let me think about this for a second. So we loaded it asynchronously. And we set up the event listener that fires off on the load. So that should fire off CalcCart. Check the event listener here just to make sure we got that set up right, because it doesn't look like it's firing that off. In fact, why don't we do this? Why don't we check it from here first? See if we got any typos. There we go. So cart form not defined, line 48 and 33. Why is that? So it's not finding cart form. Why are we not finding cart form? Because we didn't declare it. Okay, I don't remember them asking us to declare, do you? Let's go back and look. Yeah, I don't see that they asked us anywhere in here to actually declare that. Okay. Easy enough to do. I just make a note to yourself. I don't recall that instruction was missing from the last time we did this, but it does appear to be. So right here in our event listener, we need to create the variable cart form, and that will be the actual form. We're just using the document object and the forms collection and identifying the specific form, which is the cart form. So that should solve that. Let's go back and try and run this again now. We also have an error, line 49 in CalcCart. Oh, it's still saying cart form not. Well, that's just not reloaded then, is it? Because that's in the right format. Cart form, document dot, forms dot cart. So that's all good. And it's been saved. So here, let's go ahead and clear the cache. Make sure that we get rid of everything there and then refresh. No, we're still having the same error. CalcCart 49. Why is that a problem? Ah, there's the problem. Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense now that you think about it. We defined cart form here, but that's inside of it's inside of that custom or that anonymous function there. And when we call CalcCart, we never pass cart form to it. Although, oh, I see what they did. They did it again in cart. Wow, that's really weird because it's not even used. Oh, it is used here. Okay, so what they did is they actually declared this twice, once in the add event listener function up here, and then also in the CalcCart function. And I don't recall seeing that in the instructions for either one. Do you? Anybody catch that and I just missed it? No. Anyway, let's see if that fixes it. That should. It's in both places now. That looks better. Okay, so now we changed the quantity here. That should manipulate the value, and the shipping, that should manipulate the value. Then we get the subtotal, we get the sales tax, and we get the total. Okay, so we're up to step 7 then, which is where we're going into the co-credit. So right here, co-credit HTML. So now we'll go ahead and link the co-credit JavaScript file in that head section. Okay, so co-credit, here we are. We just added this, and that's all we need to have for co-credit. Now we can just switch over to the actual co-credit JavaScript file, come down here below our comments, and you can see we got a bunch of stuff built for us here. In fact, all the validation functions basically been built for us. So the validation of the name input, the credit input, the number input, the CVC, all that stuff's already been done, which is so the first thing we want to do here then will be to also create an event listener. So let's go back to instructions here. So right here at step 8, create the event listener for the window load event. And again, we're just going to add an anonymous function. And in that anonymous function, it's going to retrieve the values that are attached to the query string of the URL. And it'll add, let's see, add the following. Oh, so then we go down and we do these steps as well. So first thing is, let's just start that anonymous function and the assignment to the window event listener. So we're inside of co-credit now. There's the header for the anonymous function, assigning it to the add event listener. And then we'll close that up down here so that we don't miss it in the end. And then we're working in between right there. So to grab the values from the URL, we'll be doing this step right here. So to create the order data variable that stores the query string text for the URL, I'm going to slice up the order data text string to remove the question mark character. Remember, that's what we get when we grab all the stuff from the URL. And then also replace every occurrence of a plus character with an actual blank space and decode any URI encoded characters. And I believe, yeah, they already have that replace function created for us that replaces the plus sign with the spaces for us. So all we have to do really is just to call that function. So to start it out with, we're going to add a comment and declare the order data variable, and that will do, or we'll use a location.search.slice with a value of 1, because that's the first character. Okay, so put that in there. There's the comment. Retrieve the field/value pairs from the URL, and then the first step is just to create this order data variable and collect the value from it using the location.search.slice with the value of 1. The next thing we want to do then is replace all of the plus signs with the spaces. So to do that, we take that order data variable and use that replace function on it. So there's the order data that we created up above, and then you can see here we're just calling the replace method, the replace function, and it's targeting all those plus symbols and replacing them with a space. Next step then is to add the decode URI component on order data. So just basically take order data and just reassign it after running that through the function. So just order data equals, and then calling the function decode URI component, which has already been built for us, and then just passing order data into it. So that'll modify this data using that function, and then assign it back to order data. Okay, so now we're up to step 8b. Now we want to split the order data variable every occurrence of an ampersand or an equals character, and then store the substrings in an order fields array. So we'll do a var order fields and assign that to an order data dot split, and then in there identify that we want them to target either ampersands or equal signs. And so each one of those, every time we encounter those, it'll create a new element within that collection. So every piece, every component now, the URI has been separated out into individual elements within the order fields collection. Now in step 8c, says we want to write the following values with or from the order fields array into the indicated fields of the order form. And so just because we know, what that URI component looked like, we know which elements represent which values. And so we can very simply just go in and identify that. We want the order that's the element 3 in the order fields array. We want to assign that to model name, and whatever's at order fields 5, assign that to model quantity, and on and on. So we use document.forms.order.elements, and then each of the individual field names to do that with. Okay, so there's the same format that we use to target the specific element within our specific, it would be HTML element within the document, within the form. So model name, and then its value property, and then that's going to be whatever's stored at that element number in the order fields array. So that gives us all the numbers that we need to assign them to the right fields within the form. Assign the values. Okay, I think that covers everything on 8. So 9 now, we add another event listener for the window load event. And this will run different validation event handlers when the page is loaded by the browser. So we'll add code to an anonymous function for the load event. And then it's going to run. We're basically just assigning event handlers to the sub button, the card holder, the card number, the expiration date, and the CVC. All of those will have an event handler that'll run some function. So this is going to be outside of the previous anonymous function. And now again, window add event listener, load, anonymous function again. And then this time going through, as I said, each of those components, the sub button, the card holder, the card number, the expiration number, the CVC value, just each one of those elements assigning the appropriate event handler. So on click for the button and on input for the actual input fields. Then you can see we're just assigning the calls to, well, in the first case, the run submit for the button, but the rest of them are just the actual validation functions that are already built for us. So let's save that. I think everything else is, oh no, we still have to create this function though. So we got 2 functions that we are going to create here. We're going to create that run submit button, which just calls a bunch of other functions, basically all the validate functions. And then we still have to create one function, validate date. So step 9, we've gone through those, that list. So now here we are at 10. We're creating the run submit function, and it's going to be run when the form is submitted, because that's what we just set up with the event handler in the last step. Within the function, we want to add these commands. So just making a call then to these validation functions. So that's a pretty simple one, just function run submit, that declares the function, and then we just want to put the calls to each of those functions inside. So this is going outside of the previous anonymous function. So there's the new one, run submit, and again, just calling those methods. Those are already created except validate date. That's our next step, is to create that function. Right here at step 11. So step 11, create the validate date function. The purpose of this function is to validate the credit card expiration date stored in the expiration date field. Within the function, insert an if-else structure then that will test the following. So if no value has been entered in the expiration date, set the custom validation message to read, enter the expiration date. If the expiration date does not match the regular expression pattern of this, then we want to set the custom validation message to read, enter a valid expiration date. And then finally, it says otherwise set the custom validation to an empty string. So the function is validate date, and that's going to go right after our run submit function. And so initially we create a variable then that's called card date, and that's where we actually get that expiration date field. Now that we have that, we're going to do the if-else checks. So the first one checks to see if the value is missing. If it is, it sets the validity text to read, enter the expiration date. The next check is to see if there is a number in there, does it match this regular expression pattern? And if that returns false, or let's see, if it does not, or if it compares to false, yeah, it'll go ahead then and put in enter a valid expiration date as the custom message. Otherwise, the value must have been typed in, and it must be correct, because that's the only way to get past those two evaluations. So the else kicks in then at that point and just leaves it blank, because there's no reason to pop up an error message at that point. So we'll save that, and I think that's about it. Remaining functions already done. Save the changes, go to CodeCart, go ahead and make changes, and then see if we can load it into the credits. So we'll start with CodeCart, run that in our browser. Got everything loaded here. Let's make a few changes. Let's buy a bunch of them. Let's get ground shipping. So we're going to spend $1,000. $52 is the 5% tax. I don't know what state they live in. And now let's see, when we click checkout, there it goes to the payment form page. Now you can see we've got all the totals and everything that are here. They match what we saw on the previous page. And then we just have to go through here and check all the validation is working. Put in a value there. That should make that work. Select the card here. And on this one, we're going to actually have to go get that credit card number. There we go. Now it passes the muster there. So now we'll expire it. Let's say 12/1. Probably has to be 12/01. Oh no, it's month, year. What am I thinking? So we'll put in 12/2020. Let's see if that works better. And then our CVC is going to be some 3-digit number, and we're good. It doesn't actually take us anywhere when we submit, but the main thing is that, you know, the validation did occur on each one of those elements, and that's how we know that the code that you wrote in JavaScript is checking everything properly.